And I am going to present to you webinar number 5, Open Enrollment, Set Up for Success. That's what we all want out of Open Enrollment, and I'm going to try to help us get there. So the first thing I want to talk through are my recommendations for this year in regard to Employee Navigator and how to run the Open Enrollment. The options we have are active Open Enrollment and passive Open Enrollment. What an active Open Enrollment indicates is that you have to go, each employee needs to go in to Employee Navigator, verify their demographic information, and choose their benefits. Even if they want to keep the same things, they just need to say, save and continue, that's what I want, or make an adjustment as they'd like. Passive means if someone doesn't go in, then their election is carried over into the next year. We have, in many cases, been running passive enrollments, and I think that in my year of working to manage this system, I've worked on it now about 3 years, and one as the manager of this system, I have learned that passive enrollment does cause problems. Some of the common problems that come up with passive enrollment are dependents will remain enrolled in plans even if they've aged out. That's not true throughout the year, but it is true at open enrollment time. There's no logic built into the system to say, Joe is 26 now, he can't stay in this plan. So if his sponsoring employee is planning, say it changes coverage level, then the system is not going to catch that, and they're going to be in for, paying too much money in the wrong coverage level. That's one issue. 2, plan defaults are incorrectly assumed. In the case where one plan is being replaced by another one, you can't really know if the replacement plan is the right option and if the cost is acceptable to the employee. So by asking everyone to go in and at least look at everything, if those costs are changing or the plan design is changing, they're able to see that directly and understand what their premiums are. 3, plan elections can be improperly carried over. The same thing as when, say it's an HSA plan, that's the example Employee Navigator gives, and that makes the most sense because maybe you're changing per pay, maybe they want to change their annual and something isn't showing right. They're not going to be able to catch that if they don't go into the system. So in some cases, that's actually a legal constraint for, HSA, FSA needs to be elected or declined every year. The only way to have them do that is to actually go into the system. The last piece of that is employee verification. When employees don't go into that system, they're not able to verify their information, their dependents, their coverage. Maybe they don't really remember what they had last year and they think they want to keep everything the same, but say they thought they had dental, and in 3 months they come to you and say, why don't I have dental coverage? And you're going to say, well, you didn't go in. So, the system said you don't want dental coverage. Having them each always go in and make those elections will help alleviate those issues. And it keeps potential liability off of your plate in regard to someone saying they meant to elect this, they meant to elect that. You'd rather, I would assume, rather not have that liability. So if there's any questions about, so my recommendation is to run an active enrollment. And if there's any questions about how can employees access the system, the truth is they can access it 24/7. The online mobile portal is fantastic. There's no app. You just go on a mobile browser and it's fantastic. I've actually built things and changed things in the system from my telephone while I'm sitting at the doctor's office waiting. So it's a very solid, it's a very solid mobile platform that they can use anywhere. I also recommend, keeping the enrollment window to what I think of as sort of a more reasonable amount of time. I think a lot of times we want to give them as much time as possible, but I think it's proved true, at least in my experience, that the less time you give them, the more participation you get as far as those elections and going in. So obviously those things are up to you, your account executives and your account managers. If you choose to do a passive enrollment, we will obviously do whatever we can to avoid those pitfalls, but do know that the system plainly isn't really built to avoid those pitfalls. So it requires a lot of post open enrollment auditing. And, you know, frankly, we don't have the bandwidth to be doing that as quickly as is probably necessary to ensure no mistakes. So what I assume you want, you know, the cleanest invoices you can as soon as possible. In my opinion and my recommendation, doing an active enrollment is the way to do that. So if you have any questions on how that would work for you, your group in particular, please feel free to reach out to me. This is not, you know, me telling you what you have to do. It's just me telling you that I think this is what the best thing is to do across the board. But if there's some reason you absolutely feel, you know, that you can't do that, do reach out to me. Let me know, you know, I'll try to find a way I can solve your issues or concerns. And if I can't do that, then, you know, obviously we will do whatever we can behind the scenes to make everything work for everyone. So know that that's one recommendation that I just have off the top, and then we will jump right into what open enrollment looks like. I already built this on the back end. You don't need to know how it's built by any means. I do just want to show you what it looks like on the back end so that you have some sense of what's going on behind the scenes. So when I build in an open enrollment, I tell it, this is how much time we're giving these employees to enroll. From 8/19, this is just this group's example, through 8/30, and this is for a 9/1 effective. So I don't actually recommend running that close to it. We have to be able to pull reporting. Our enrollments team has to be able to get everything to the carriers, and we obviously want to do that before the effective date in time for cards, et cetera, where appropriate to come out. So the sooner, one of those reasons that I talk about, you know, not giving them so much time is because the closer you run to that, the more likely it is that your bills are going to be off for longer than just the 1 month, et cetera, et cetera. It has sort of a snowball effect. So, and obviously we're all at the mercy of the carriers and when renewals come out. But I do just want us to be thinking about those things in regard to enrollments. Again, on the other end, we're going to do everything we can to make your guys' lives as easy as possible. So when I build this, it looks like this. I give it the dates. Administrative date is really, it can be the same day. Or I actually think it can't be the same day. It has to be the next day. And you need just at least 1 day for that administrative period. And then your closeout is going to be your effective date. And the system rolls itself over on the effective date and closes out. I know some people have experienced having to close early because you felt like reporting was not accurate. That's not going to be an issue this year. I've got that figured out for you, and I'll show you that here in a few minutes. But you'll be able to pull reporting before the effective date and before open enrollment is actually closed out. So the next little piece to this is me telling the system what plans we're going to have in open enrollment. In this case, it's a 9/1, so I'm excluding HSA and FSA because those are 1/1 every time for everyone. So then I just hit save and continue. What is usually here, these are brand new plans, so there are no ending plans. In most of your cases, I don't know that any of you are brand new this year, so you will have plans, and what I'm going to do here is where I'm going to tell it whether we're having an active or passive enrollment. I'm going to tell it what to do with each plan. So I'm going to take dental 2019, and if I want to use passive enroll, I'm going to tell the system, if they're enrolled in dental 2019, I want them to stay enrolled but be now in dental 2020. Again, the reason that that's not ideal is because maybe the dental plans change, maybe the premiums are changed, and if this employee doesn't go in, they don't see that. They might get the presentation at open enrollment, but having the system shows it to them in their face, and then they sign off on what they want, and it covers everybody. So that's what's usually there when there are plans that are ending. This is only if you are integrated with payroll, and again, this is something that I will manage, but know that it's there. None of this is anything you guys need to pay any attention to except perhaps report. This is also available in the reporting tab, so I'll go over it there more specifically, but know that you can do this open enrollment changes report within the open enrollment module. The only other piece that you guys will want to know about is the send notification. This is what you can do to help track your employees who haven't started, aren't finished, basically, or to thank those who did finish. So you're just going to type in your name. I'm not going to actually send any emails, but you can say, okay, who's going to get this? People who have not started at all, I can't select both, but I can do a specific employee. If there's just one straggler out there, you can send that employee an email direct from the system. So most of the time I'm going to pick not started or in process. I'm going to filter by condition, because why would I send this to people who are not benefit eligible? Though you can have them go through and confirm their demographic information if you want. But in this case, I'm going to say we only want to send it to people benefit eligible. And then you can draft a new email, and you can save these, and they'll exist in your notification library. So you don't have to type this out a bunch of different times. So when you type this, you go through, and then you'll just send it. You do have to, if you want it to be a template, you do have to add it through here rather than composing it here. So if you wanted something you could save, go there first. And then it will live right here, and you can select it. But this is how to draft, and then you would just send it. So that's something you may want to use throughout open enrollment as we go through and everything is looked at. I will mention new hires during open enrollment can be, I'm sure you've all experienced it, can be a little bit of an issue. The only reason is because with a new hire and open enrollment, there are competing windows. So if you hire someone during open enrollment time, especially if their effective date is the same as open enrollment, those people still have to be pulled on a new hire report rather than an open enrollment report, because technically their start date is 1/1 because they're a new hire, not because they're going through open enrollment. And in most cases, they do have to go through two windows. So they do have to run through first their first their new hire window and then their open enrollment window. So if you have new hires during open enrollment, don't worry too much. Feel free to reach out to me directly, make sure they're looking good, no problem. I've got it in our process this year that, we'll pay close attention to those so they don't get, I'm sure you've heard, well, they were a new hire during open enrollment, so we didn't catch it. Not a good enough reason for me, so I'm rolling in some process to make sure we catch those. But if you have any questions about how that works, never hesitate to reach out. So the next thing I'll just mention real quick. This year also, I'm going to be sending out to everybody kind of a one-pager. I think it'll be 2 sides, but just a one-pager of how to enroll with some screenshots to help everybody through the process, make sure everybody can see what needs to be processed and how it all works and what it should look like in the end. So I'll kind of run through what that enrollment looks like. So this is a good thing to catch. I'm glad I picked this person. Test bot will be under the report as can't start. Probably. Well, might not be. Let me look. I'm just curious now. I'm thinking, nope, it won't be can't start, and here's why. Because it doesn't have any buckets to tell it what should this person be eligible for. In most cases, if you have a tobacco user missing or something like that, it'll just live in can't start. And I'll go through that more specifically here in a moment. But if you find somebody that's missing these fields, in order for them to, get an open enrollment offer, you have to give them some buckets. So I'm going to come in here and fix everything that says these little exclamation points next to them. Everything I need to fill out is in red for me. And then I'll save this. I'll just use the hire date. And then it tells me, oh, okay, then they're eligible for these things. Cool. Great. Medical, needs tobacco. They must have a CI plan. Whenever there's a critical illness plan and there are tobacco-based rates, tobacco status is required. Otherwise, the system can't understand what rates they need. So now I have an open enrollment window for test bot. So let's just run through it real fast. The tendency, I think, is these first couple of pages for people to just skip. Ideally, they're going to actually look at this, verify their information, and then hit save and continue. What that's going to do is show them anything that's missing. So I'm going to go ahead and give it my email address. Oh, okay, we need that. Yep, we need that. Now I'm going to point out over here, all of these little orange with a line should turn into a green with a check. If they don't, it means they skipped it. And while I can't say exactly what happens in the background on these systems, if they're skipped, things tend to go wrong. So it's pretty important for them to go step by step through this. With most of these things, if there aren't any ads or changes to do, it's just a matter of hitting save and continue. In this case, the address needs to be verified. This is new this year, so you can just hit use this address and it will send it through address verification. If there are any dependents that need to be added, if they're a newer employee and they haven't added any dependents yet, this is a good place to do that. If they're just adding a new one for this year, I didn't carry this person last year, but hey, this year I need to carry my son. So we can enter their information at this time. I'll just kind of quickly go add somebody. I think it's going to make me give it a social. I just always want to, whether required or not, I recommend and ask that it's messaged to employees that, you fill out as much information as you possibly can. Reason being, so son test is, 16 years old at this point, right? So he's got 3 years before our system, if this is not marked as yes, is going to try to drop him from benefits. You don't have to fill in college start or expected graduation date for it to not drop them. Just tell it they're a student. If they turn 19 and they're not going to college and they should come off, then you can just come in and hit no, save it, then our system will know what to do. So again, I ask that as many things filled out as possible. It helps to avoid issues in the future. But if that was not filled out, it would not change anything for him right now since he's only 16 years old. It's just a sort of good practice to keep all that information up to date. So then I'm gonna run through my open enrollment, my elections. Here's my medical. I can compare real quick. Do I wanna carry him? If it's just me, it's $48, but if I add him, it's 120. Well, you gotta do it, right? So we're gonna make our election. I will also point out that here, this is all new plans because I just built this, but you can compare, in your cases, there will be accident 2019, accident 2020, and it's going to show the difference in the rates. Some of them have actual plan description. They'll show you the differences in the plan. This is more eligibility. This has the rates and eligibility threshold. And then there will be documents that are attached to those plans available there as well. So there's a lot I'm going to be working on this year to try to get some decision support in there. What this is going to look like is they can answer these questions based on this slider, how important is it, and then the system will actually suggest to them based on their answers, what it thinks the best option for them is. And I'm going to work to try to get that taken care of before OE. In that case, frankly, no promises, but I'm going to try. So here we are at dental, same thing. Maybe he's covered by dad, so we don't need him. I'm just running through this real quick so you can see everything as it stands. And then these are some things that love to get skipped. This won't cause any issues this year because they've added a feature where I can bulk enroll it. But if you can mention it to your employees, anything that shows a 0 cost per pay, just hit save and continue. It means you get it. You should have it automatically. You don't pay for it. It's something that your employer is providing to you. So go ahead and elect it. Again, this year, I know it's been a problem in the past, but there is a bulk enroll that will make sure that those core or employer paid products are enrolled for everyone. Here's our voluntary life. I'm gonna go ahead and decline this one. I'm just not interested. I just wanna run through every option. And then we get here to our signature required. For some reason, this is where a lot of people stop. I want to point out that at this point you can sign if you want to go back and speak with your spouse or, check out some of the plans, do some more research, no problem. You can sign and still go back in, or you can wait to sign. But if you wait to sign, you have to make sure your employees, if you're having the employees do it or you, go back in and sign these. If they're not signed, the system kind of gets confused. Is this a declination? Do they not want this? Should this go to next year? And those are a lot of the issues we've approached in the past. is when someone's going through the enrollment process and the flow, and they go back and they ask about something, and maybe they decided, nope, what I did is fine, but they never come in and they never sign this. And then the system gets very confused. So I would suggest messaging to your employees that they make sure that all of these orangies turn into greenies and that the enrollment is signed. You do get a summary here and a total cost per pay. Shows you what dependents are on what you declined. I do kind of wish that was more at the bottom, but you do have to come back up here to sign it. And then that will sign and date it, timestamp it. You can print that, they can print that, however you'd like to work that. So I think these are important little pieces for open enrollment that we haven't really approached in the past that all seem very simple, but it's a matter of messaging and making sure that the employees can do that. And I think that one pager that I spoke about will help, because there is a screenshot to show those, the orange to the green and making sure the signature is in. So ideally that will help what's going on for the employees. All right, next thing we're gonna jump into, and probably is one of the most important pieces that I think maybe in the past hasn't been explained as well as it could be to everyone, is reporting before, during, and after open enrollment. I have some recommendations before. My recommendations before, sorry, a little too fast, are to double check these invalid addresses. This is a new thing that Navigator has done. They're gonna ask you if there are bad addresses. So it knows Anywhere Street at Don't Know Nebraska is not a real place, right? So it gives you the opportunity to edit it, or you can say, you know what, I wanna validate this. It's not validated, use it anyway. You can override these things. Again, this is one of my reasons why it's a recommendation to have your employees all sort of forced, if you will, to go in to validate their own information. If they don't go in and do this, you're gonna have to. So again, that's just another reason I think having the employees make sure to go in is a really good plan. So we won't obviously go through and validate all these. I just wanted to show you that. That's one thing to pay attention to ahead of open enrollment. And if there's a bunch of these, again, that's a good reason to make the employees go do the work themselves. And anytime there are questions about how to train the employees, reach out to me. I'm happy to work something up for you, help you out however I can. Reporting. Before open enrollment, my recommendation, besides the addresses, is that you run 3 to 4 different reports. The first reports I'm going to talk about are these audit reports. If I were running an open enrollment, I would run enrolled but ineligible. This is kind of what happens at the open enrollment when I talked about passive. If somebody last year was, and really I would look at these once every couple months maybe, if somebody gets enrolled and stays in because the system doesn't recognize it, it's at least going to know they're not eligible, but they're there. So that's a good one to look at. In most cases, you probably won't have much, to be honest. Same thing with enrolled but terminated. How could they be enrolled if they were terminated? We're dealing with technology. Sometimes I don't know the answer, but it's just a good thing to look at quick. I don't expect them to take very long. Bad export data is, it's just that. It's, again, I love these blue identification information buttons. That's the word I'm looking for. Information. So this shows you what this looks like is if a social looks clearly wrong, you're missing a name, gender is not male or female, it's missing a date of birth, it's, somehow the date of birth is before, is, in the future from today, or they're older than 112, all these different things. These are things that, the carrier is going to need as we go through the election. So kind of running through this and then going into anybody who's missing data or has bad data. In this case, there's obviously a lot because we're faking people, but I don't think there's very much, but I think it's a good thing to look at ahead of your open enrollment. Lastly, ahead of, I would recommend pulling this voluntary life report. I know we've had a lot of issues over the last few years of EOIs, voluntary life coverage. What did they have last year? What did they mean to get this year? So I would recommend running this report ahead of open enrollment Never hesitate to reach out if you need some help. First, last, social is what I always do on this side of things. If you have offices or departments you want to be able to filter by, you can make those elections there. Remember that anything with this little filter next to it, when you click it, it's going to pop up over here under custom filters where you can make your choices. In this case, there isn't one, but many of you have those. So then I'm going to go into my enrollment. I'm going to pick my plan and my benefit coverage level. I always do plan and benefit where available. I think it just gives you better results, honestly. I don't know why. It's just my experience. So then with the voluntary life report, it looks very much like an ad hoc report, but it's not. It's different behind the scenes. So what you have here are options that you don't have on any other report. Total monthly EE cost is going to be just the cost of the employee. This is something that I think has come up a lot of times where you're running reports to try to do payroll and suddenly you realize this doesn't include the dependents. That's correct. Then you want total monthly plan cost to include everyone. This is going to show you just the employee monthly cost. Then it's going to show you plan monthly cost. You can kind of make these, I would look at all of it. It's voluntary, so you guys aren't paying anything. Then for your EOIs and your pending amounts, you can look at approved cost, approved benefit, insurability requested. That's just a yes or no. Then you can look at pending cost and pending benefit amount. So what that is it's repeating what you see in the benefit summary when there's an outstanding EOI. So I'm going to go back real fast here to test bot, and I'm going to show you with the voluntary life election. First of all, you can easily go back and make new elections because remember we declined this and said we don't want it. I'm going to go, I went home and I talked to my spouse and now he thinks I should get it. So I'm going to get up to my guarantee issue. In this case, I have no guarantee issue because I'm a late entrant. So let's just say 150. Do I want to put my son on it? Sure. Let's give him 10,000. He's going to need that EOI too. Perfect. Save and continue. It's going to pop up and say, okay, this is great. Based on this election, you need to submit EOI. In this case, we don't have the link built in. Many of you have an Unum link, but if you don't have the link, the EOI form should be available right here. They can print it out at that time, or you can come back to it either way and continue. And this is where this is also fairly new. They do have to enter a beneficiary. When there's already a dependent listed, they can just elect that dependent. Allocation does need to be 100%. I say this very clearly because I've had it a couple of times, a situation where a person wanted to split their beneficiaries in threes. They had 3 children and they want each person to get 33%. So the system is so rules-based that if you just give each person 33%, it says, sorry, I can't save that. That's only 99%. So if you want to split it in threes, you got to give it 33.33 to 2 and 33.34 to one of them. So just know that, but if there's one person, you just throw it in there. You can always update these. Okay, it's just reminding you that until evidence of insurability has been submitted, they're not going to get any benefits. So then you get your summary page again. Now, when someone does come back in and make a change, you do need to sign again because I just changed everything. I just did, right? So I need to sign this one more time. And then it time stamps, dates, etc. And as long as open enrollment is open, they can do it 20 different times. No problem. They can change it as many times as they want as long as open enrollment is still open. Once it's closed, that's when any changes that they try to do is going to really show up as a QLE, and then we're going to have more issues. So just make sure that your employees ideally will know that if they want to go in and make a change, just please make sure, again, that all of these are green and you've signed your enrollments. So that's what that looks like. So the reason I did that is I want to point out to you in the benefit summary. Now we're in open enrollment. I don't know how many know about this dropdown. Currently, they have no plans. So if you go to open enrollment, it's going to show you what they've elected. And it's going to show you that your voluntary life here is pending these amounts. So when you're looking at these reports, this report's going to show you in current, what does it call it? In approved cost, it's going to show you $0. And if you pull it pending, it's going to show you that premium. That's per pay. So we want to see it. I believe these are posting per month. So let's look. I'm going to say I want to see approved cost, approved benefit amount. I'm going to say I want to see pending cost and pending benefit amount. I don't personally find insurability requested very necessary, because if there is a pending amount, then they have to do insurability. So I think that's kind of a little bit redundant. When you're dealing with spouses and children, you can do the very same thing for them. In this case, we don't have a spouse. I'm just going to look at this one person, but I can see children cost. I can see that it applies to all children. Again, yes or no. Per child benefit amount, anything pending for the kids. So we can, children pending, there we go. Pending cost. And then I want to see open enrollment. I don't want to see anything that's currently true. I just want to look at open. So I'm going to pull that, and then we have our test bot that we just entered their election, because it's the only one who's made the open enrollment election. So you will see here that the employee currently has nothing, and what is pending is this 150, and that's the cost that's pending, etc. So this is a great report. I kind of jumped a little ahead. What I meant to be talking about is, yes, let's pull this for current. You can do default, and then this is what everybody has right now. Again, I only have about 8 people in this group, so yours is going to be bigger and have more information. But I'm going to pull this report because I'm going to see what they have right now, what they're doing. This looks very strange. I don't know what's going on there. Oh, it's John Travolta. It's not TestBot. Sorry. So John, this is the only person who's active right now is John Travolta. So it's showing everything that's approved and what he's doing right now. So if you pull this report ahead of open enrollment, it's going to be something that's going to be really, I think, helpful to look back at for you as we go through those EOIs and those pending requests this year. And again, never, ever hesitate. I'll just keep saying it, to reach out to me and let me know how I can help support your group. Every group is a little different, so I hate to put in something to do for everyone if you're going to function very differently. So never hesitate to reach out. The next little piece of reporting is what I kind of refer to as progress reporting throughout open enrollment. I think on a former webinar, I'm positive, on a former webinar, I showed you the new hire and newly eligible enrollment reports. It's exactly the same thing for open enrollment. And I call it a progress report because you can see who can't start, who's not started, who's in process, and who's complete. If you click on the link for each of these, when there's a number next to it, it will give you the list of who's in that bucket, so to speak. So these are our 8 employees who have not started. Excuse me. This is where I can go back to that open enrollment. Like say there's 2 days left in open enrollment. I can go back in here, hit that little pencil button, and come in here and send those notifications. Never hesitate to ask me to do it for you. Happy to do it or remind you how. No problem. So going back to this report, you can then also see who's in process and who's completed. I think these are important really more as you get closer to the end of your open enrollment to see who's still sort of straggling out there. And I'll do my best this year to try to help everybody keep an eye on that to make sure we don't lose anybody in the craziness of Q4. Between open enrollment and closeout, when you're running reporting, if you need to run a row-based, you want to see something, I'm not going to pull an actual report here, but when you look over here at what type of enrollment, 99.9% of the time throughout the year, you're just going to do default. There's no reason to change it. At open enrollment time, if you want to know what's going on during open enrollment only, then you will want to select open. If you want to know what's going on right now without taking open enrollment into consideration, you're going to choose current. You certainly can mess with these dates. I've tried to find a formula that really works here. I've used them on occasion, but honestly, I tend to use Excel more than these dates. I use Excel to just filter everything out. So this is one of those I won't run through, but if you have any specific reporting that you're not sure how to handle, especially during open enrollment, just shoot me an email or give me a call and I will help you walk through that. Now, our EOIs, we're going to talk about pretty specifically here. EOIs live on that front page of your group in review insurability requests. Now, I have a lot more options over here than you will, so there's only a few people to see. So as you can see, we know we just requested this, right, from the carrier, but we just did it today. So if you're looking through insurability requests, make sure you're not approving anything until you know that the carrier has approved it. Because what that's going to do is put the approved cost into your benefit summary, your payroll reporting, all of those things as soon as you approve this amount, which I will show you right now. So if you've got somebody pending and you want to approve their benefit, you will say approved. And the carrier will always give you this effective date. Sometimes, as you know, people don't get it in fast enough. So it's not going to let me save it. Let me see if I can make it smaller so it will let me save it. It's just, there we go. So I can say approved. If the carrier says this isn't good until 10/1 because it was a late submission or whatever the reason, I'll put the effective date and save it. The child was awaiting employee approval, but now I have approved the employee. So now I have to also come in and approve the child because it's a separate EOI. Well, it's the same EOI, but it's a separate benefit. You'll notice that the coverage started automatically defaults to when the employee coverage started. You can override it if for some reason your child is not effective until 11/1. And then if we go back to that benefit summary, and this should only be after, again, that the carrier has approved it, and we know it's approved because now if you look at the benefit summary in open enrollment, ideally this will wait until it's actually current, but you'll see that their cost per pay is now reflected, and that's what will show up on your payroll reporting. So if you erroneously, accidentally approve somebody, make sure you let me know. I'll have to edit that from the back end. We may actually choose not to do that because when I use Enrollment Editor, it makes it so that if there's a bulk change, that person is not affected. So I try to use Enrollment Editor as irregularly as possible. But again, if you accidentally approve somebody or decline somebody who shouldn't have been approved or declined, just let me know and I will fix that for you. Oops, I left the group. Excuse me. There we go. I do want to point out right here, what are the status definitions? There's only two definitions that sort of fight each other a little bit, and then I know I've had some confusion. Approve is obviously if it's approved. Withdrawn is if they change their mind. They don't want it. They didn't complete the EOI. They changed their mind, whatever the reason. The real question is between declined and rejected. In the case of declined, what this is going to indicate is that the amount above the guaranteed issue has been denied by the insurance company, but that leaves the guarantee issue amount. So they do still have some life insurance. It's just less than they wanted. They were declined for the amount over that. Rejected is if they were denied by the insurance company all out, and they're not even accepting their application for the guarantee issue. And that means they have no life insurance. So that you only want to use rejected in the case that life insurance is not on the table anymore. So those are some statuses, might help there. You can elect them. You can look at everything at once. So I can see now, test has been approved, John Travolta has been approved. That's all I've had this year. When you look at select all, you can look at them separately, of course. So that is the EOIs. And I think that's about it for today, actually. We're going to go deeper into reporting, payroll deductions, how to look at payroll deductions for the future without closing open enrollment early. Closing open enrollment early does have some consequences on the back end that are not ideal. So my stance is that we let everything run out. But again, on the next webinar, 9/17, I will more specifically go through that. So you guys all know how to make sure that you're pulling the right deductions for your effective dates. So next webinar, again, 9/17, September 17th, will be the last one for the year. We're not going to do this during Q4 so that I can be as available as possible to help you guys out, hopefully come out to some of your open enrollments and try to help you as much as possible. So next webinar, again, will be the last webinar for the year. We'll start up again. I'm not sure if we'll do January or February. We'll have to see kind of how things go. But we will do this. We will continue doing this. Some information may be repeated, but we'll continue to do this. And any suggestions you have, please make sure to either fill out that SurveyMonkey if you don't want to send me direct feedback. But, you know, I got a pretty thick skin, so feel free to just shoot me an email. Anything you'd like to see gone over next year, anything you felt has been super helpful, anything you felt that has not been helpful, all of those things would really help me out in trying to make sure that these are as effective as possible and we're all learning as much as possible together. With that, I will let you all get back to your days, and I thank you for your time and attention.